Revisiting my dreams with the king.
Yo, good people, welcome to another episode of the Revisit Your Dreams podcast right here on the Revisit Your Dreams channel on YouTube.com. I'm your host, Johnny King III, aka Still Chill Leroy, and we have a very special episode for you today. Today's episode is titled, Write the Book, Create the Legacy. I want to start by thanking each one of you as subscribers to being here tonight, to being with us on this channel. And if you're new to the channel, I want to personally thank you for being here and encourage you to subscribe and join our growing community of dreamers and doers. I have a talented set of book authors to present to you today. But first, I want to remind you of what we're doing here at Revisit Your Dreams. Our goal here at Revisit Your Dreams is to encourage, to inspire, to motivate, to explore real stories of trial, error, and success, and maybe even provide a few laughs along the way. My very special panel of book authors today include two authors, both from the itty bitty city by the bay, Vallejo, California. Monica is a native of Vallejo and formerly spent several years as a resident in the state of Hawaii. We'll talk to her more about that experience. Monica Renee has also written and published two books, God's Voice and The Spirit House, both available on Amazon.com. Cameron Johnson is the author of the book My Pops and the Lessons He Taught Me. Cameron's a fellow proud graduate of Tennessee State University and as well a proud brother and member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Please welcome to the show my sister, Miss Monica Renee, and my brother, Mr. Cameron Johnson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, glad you guys are here, man. I like to start off each episode by telling the audience how I met each guest or how I know each guest. Everybody that I'm interviewing on these episodes are people that I know personally, people that I grew up with, people that I went to college with or high school with, some people I've worked with as peers and co-workers and met at social networks, all the above. But each one I know personally. These two individuals, we kind of go way back. Cameron, I'll say, I just mentioned to you that he's a fraternity brother of mine. His sister and my sister are best friends. So he's a little younger than me, but my sister is also a little younger than me. And, they go way back. And so I have some history of knowing Cameron from when he was younger. I actually got some video that he probably don't even know about of Cameron being bounced on his daddy's knee while his sister was in a dance studio with my sister. I got to show you that, Cam, one day.
Wow.
I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Yeah. Monica, me and Monica go way back to before high school a little bit. I know it is at least in high school. I knew her in high school. And then after I graduated from high school, when I came back from college, I started going to church in Benicia at Lighthouse Covenant Fellowship. And that's where me and Monica's relationship kind of rekindled. And we were both in the, choir ministry together, both in the children's ministry together. And so we kind of go back from that. But Monica, I'm going to start with you. Do you have any feedback on how we met or how we know each other?
Yeah, it was high school. I was a transplant to Vallejo from San Francisco, and I was super duper shy and awkward. So you were like Mr. Popular and playing baseball and everything. So I see you and your brother Jamel in the distance. I was in the same grade with Jamel. So year of 93. And but I didn't really know you guys. And then like you said, a few years later, we met at church. We were both youth leaders, worship team members, and that's where we really got to know each other. I became your kid's auntie. And that's where we kind of locked in and got some history going. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So same-ish. Yeah.
I wasn't all that popular in high school, like you say, but I did play baseball a little bit.
I thought you were.
Well, I appreciate that.
Everybody knew who Johnny King was.
When I was running hurdles, maybe. Probably because I used to have the first race of every event, and I was coming in first. So, that was probably it. But Cameron, you have any feedback on how we met, how we know each other?
Well, like you said, my sister and your sister, best friends. Um, I definitely want to look at that footage because I want to see how little I was. I was like I
I
said,
got it for sure.
growing up. Like I said, they were just thick as thieves. They were always together, and so our family sort of just naturally intertwined from them building a relationship. And then, of course, when I got to Tennessee, we later reconnected when I found out that you lived there, and of course, when I started wanting to become a member of Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, we connected on that level as well. But it's funny how we just our lives stayed intertwined from when I was like a baby all the way up until now that like I said, I'm actually going to be 35 in a few weeks. So for us to just be connected that long in life is just kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
it is, man. I value these relationships. I value these friendships. I value the relationships, even me knowing your parents, and valuing those relationships. So this has been a great thing. And I'm glad to have you guys on here today to share a little bit about your stories and your testimonies. And again, this is a first in a series that I'm calling the Book Author Series. I will be interviewing as further episodes and further seasons go. My desire is to interview more and more book authors and put those episodes under this series, the Book Author Series. So you guys have the honor of being the two inaugural members of the Book Author Series, if I'm gonna call that a membership.
Nice.
So I appreciate you guys doing this. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. My first question I ask everybody that I interview that's from Vallejo. I ask them this question. My question is, what is it about Vallejo? That's the name of the topic. I'm gonna start with you, Monica. As you know, there are plenty of people that of influence that have come from our city, from entertainment, from the arts, music, hip hop, and even some other things. Um, Sports world for sure, but sports and entertainment are the two biggest, areas in Vallejo that we see people rise up out of our city. What do you think it is about our city of Vallejo that creates such talent to rise up out of our city?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I don't know. I think the Bay itself has just tons of history and culture, and like so much has popped out of here, but Vallejo is like a little gem in and of itself. It has like its own flavor of the Bay Area. And um I don't know, like so much has come out of here, E40 and Confunction and like the legends. So I think that influence just kind of touched our young hearts when we were coming up, and we knew, like, even though we're this tiny little town, we see that, like, this huge talent can come out of our small little, small known Bay Area town. So I don't know, that inspired us. I mean, like, there's some big names that came out of here. So
Yeah.
I think that made us know, like, even though we're small and kind of obscure, that we can make it too. So maybe that's what inspired. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I want to.
So
That's a
that's my
great
guess. But
response.
there's tons of culture here. There's so much diversity here too. Sorry, but I think that, like, all the influence of like Asian and Filipino and Black and Latino, Indian, like there's so much that you can draw from, and we all like ate each other's foods and wore each other's jewelry, and you can see the interaction between all the different cultures. So I think that, like, pulls out creativity and like depth of richness of creating. So I don't know, that's my guess.
Yeah, no, great response. I mean, great response. The diversity piece is huge. The inspiration from influences, here is huge that have come out of the city is huge. So you're right. I think we were, and a lot of us, a lot of people still are inspired by people who continue to rise up out of Vallejo. Cameron, what's your take on what what do you think creates the dynamic that pushes people to greater heights coming out of Vallejo?
Um, well, I do want to say I definitely want to echo everything Monica said. Absolutely. But I also want to say that I think it's an underdog mentality that we have in the city. Like I said, Vallejo is not a big city. When people think about the Bay Area, they usually think about San Francisco or
Hmm.
Oakland. They don't talk about like Berkeley or Richmond that much, or even like I said, Benicia or Vallejo. So it seems like we just sort of have to like crawl up out of like I don't want to say obscurity, but it seems like people seem to forget how important Vallejo is, and just like as part of like the northern Bay
Hmm.
Area. So I would say it's definitely an underdog mentality in that, and there's also just some sort of, I would say, kinetic energy that just everyone, like she said, that connects us all in the city. It's just like, because every time I even go back home, it feels different. You know, I've been in the South for almost 20 plus years, but every time I come home, I still feel that energy from when I was a child. Like something was different growing up in Vallejo. Just in that energy that I felt like growing up in like in such a diverse culture, I think has helped push a lot of us to like want to not only get out of Vallejo, but also never forget our roots as well. Because a lot of people that have made it to those heights, like you said, E40, CC Sabathia, they still come back to Vallejo and they still have roots in
Hmm.
Vallejo. So I think that's another thing that I think is just important in as far as like what Vallejo means and what it brings to not only like I said, California or even the United States, but the world, because it seems like a lot of people that come out of Vallejo influence a whole lot of different areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You mentioned that underdog mentality. I agree with that statement. I think, and I saw Monica shaking her head when you said that. Like, yeah, there's something about that too. Being such a small city in a big populated uh, part of the country like the Bay Area. You mentioned Cam, the big cities like Oakland and San Francisco, and not getting the love or not getting the recognition as a bigger city. I remember one time, if you look on the map now, Vallejo is in big bold letters on the map in California. But at one time,
Yeah.
it wasn't even mentioned on the map. It was very very small print if it was. And
Right.
so that's, and the size of the city hasn't really grown. The city's still the same. I mean, maybe more
Yeah.
people in it, but the borders of the city is still the same. You know, um,
Yeah.
so it goes to show that Vallejo has rose up and made some statements that people recognize where that city is. That there are people from there of notoriety, and when that city's put on the map, it deserves to be recognized. They put it on the map.
Right.
Those people that you mentioned helped to put it on the map. You are helping to put it on the map by doing what you're doing and being here today. So I appreciate you guys in those responses. Um, as you know, if you're watching this, if you've been watching any of these episodes, you hear a common theme when I ask this question about Vallejo, the underdog, inspiration, so many different artists, culture, so many different nationalities, diversity. Like you hear all those same common themes coming from everyone who answers this question. So I appreciate you guys' responses and takes on that. My first question, as we get into the topic, is going to be for Monica. But it's actually just a question about Monica. I told you earlier that Monica spent some time living in Hawaii, so I'm going to ask her a question about that. You've experienced life in a way that most of us could only dream about, and that is living life as an adult in the state of Hawaii. Talk to us about that experience, Monica, and how you ended up there, and what made you stay there as long as you did.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it nice and concise. There is some Hawaiian influence in my family. We're Black and Filipino, but my grandma was born in Hawaii. So I grew up seeing the art and tasting the food and stuff. I ended up becoming a hula dancer in '02, and I'm still kind of dancing. We're having a luau at my birthday party this weekend. Um, so I've had this like love for Polynesian culture for as long as I can remember. And when I was in my early 30s, I was going to go and move to Brazil for a year. Actually, our Pastor Sam Huddleston, had encouraged me and hooked me up, and I was going to go to Brazil for a year, my first ever missions trip, and everything fell through. Like to the last minute. It was the most like hair pulling process. And I had raised money and did all my, got shots and passports and all those things. And it fell through at the last minute. And I was devastated because I had given up my apartment, my car, I was ready to go to Brazil. And I was like back here, like, what do I do? And somebody told me about a huge missions organization. It's called YWAM in Hawaii. And I went there to volunteer because I felt that way people could see I'm still helping with the mission field, even though I'm not in the mission field, and their funds that they raised were going still to the ministry. And so I went for a 3-month volunteer program on the campus and absolutely fell in love with the island. I got involved with the church there, and I thought, oh, once I'm done with this program, am I just going to go back to California? Am I still going to go to Brazil? But the island was calling my name, and I don't know. I just like I said, I fell in love with the culture and the island, and I just immersed myself. And I thought, hey, I already gave everything up. So I might as well try to like make some roots while I'm here. So I ended up staying there for 4 years and got really involved with church and the community, and just coming up and learning about hula and like the dance and everything. It just got me immersed into why I was dancing. It wasn't just a cute, little entertainment thing, but I realized I'm borrowing somebody's culture and this is serious business. So I gained our director really did pour that into us, but even more so in Hawaii. So I just gained this like massive respect for a different culture that I was dabbling into. So yeah, that's how I ended up there. I still want to go back sometimes. I'm like, what? Why did I come back to California? But this is my home too. This is paradise too.
Yeah,
So my heart lives in two places. So
yeah. I'm sure a lot of people that's watching this might have that same question. Why did you go back to California? You were in the place that we all try to go to and stay. We want to go back to
right, right.
the but
Yeah. You know what? I was watching I'm a huge family person. I was watching even though I was very plugged in there to community, I was watching my nieces and nephews grow up on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh, I'm missing a lot of important years." And yeah, so I came back to like, watch them grow up. Now they're grown, so I don't know, maybe I might
that door might swing
float
back
back
open.
across the sea, but what's
Yeah,
that?
and I said that door might swing back open now, huh?
Yeah, who knows?
I
So,
think that's great. Everything happens for a reason. This is I think
yeah,
that's what the story behind your journey in that story is you were set out to go to Brazil and it didn't happen. Everything fell through. You sold everything. You got rid of everything. You were prepared to basically take a leap of faith and put your life on the line and say, I'm giving it all up for this experience. Even if it's just for a year. And that was an amazing step of faith. And for it to all, you know, crumble and not come to pass, I'm sure that was tough to deal with. But in the long run, look at what value you got out of it. And having gone to Hawaii, having that experience, the depth of that experience when you add the hula dancing and your culture. I've seen many videos of you hula dancing. It inspires me watching you do that. Just knowing your personality, and it's something that's getting you out of your shell a little bit too. So I really,
yeah.
I really respect you doing that. And for anyone,
Thanks.
if you're going through a challenge where it seems like that's the end of the road, it's usually not the end of the road. It's usually just a roadblock and the start of a diversion to a different road path. And that road path may be just as good or even more beneficial or fruitful for you than the one you were trying to go down. So I appreciate that response, Monica.
Sure.
Uh, I don't know if
Yeah.
I would have came back to California though if I was living in Hawaii. I did when I was living in Tennessee, but I don't know if I'd have did that if I was living in Hawaii. Cameron, like myself and a few others from the V, you took your talents down south and went and furthered your education at the greatest HBCU in the land, the Tennessee State University. Talk about your decision to leave California and how your HBCU experience changed your life.
So, of course, growing up in Vallejo, we grew up in a very diverse culture. I went to school with, black people, white people, Latino, Filipino, different Asian cultures, Native Americans. So, like I said, growing up, very diverse culture. Um, but my dad was actually the one who pushed both me and my sister to go to HBCUs. My mom, she wanted us to stay in California and go to school. She's like, I don't want my babies going that far. But my dad, he wanted me to experience what he experienced because he actually went to North Carolina A&T. He's originally from North Carolina, and that's where he went to school. And he wanted us to not miss out on that experience of being at an all, like I said, all black school at HBCU, and to just, see what that would be like. So I sort of actually had five. I got into five different schools that were HBCUs, and Tennessee State was actually the last one to give me my acceptance letter.
Wow.
And my dad actually, me and him, we sort of did our own HBCU because I think at the time I was going to Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, and in Vallejo, the school district was actually doing a trip to different HBCU schools, and I actually, since I went to school at Rodriguez, that was considered fair to soon Fairfield, so I couldn't actually go on the trip. So my dad was like, "Fine, we'll do it ourselves." So we flew in, I think, to Atlanta, and we actually stayed at your dad's
Oh yeah.
house that for a few days. Yeah, so I mean, we visited Morehouse, and then I think we drove to. Well, no, I think we flew into Birmingham first. That's where my godmother was staying at the time. I went to Tuskegee, and then we drove to Atlanta, and I went to go see Morehouse. Then we went to, I think, Tennessee State after that. Then we went to North Carolina A&T, and I'm trying to think what was the last school we went to. I can't remember at the time, but we actually did our own tour, and like I said, Tennessee State was the last one to give me my acceptance letter, and that going to that campus, I felt something. So that's what I chose. So, fall 2008, got to Tennessee State University, uh, went into the quad. They had the DJ out there. I was seeing like everybody, different people from different backgrounds and states. But it was all us. It was all us, and it was just amazing just to see a sea of us just all coming together for us to not only further our education but to bond, to develop connections, to develop relationships. And in like the first 2 weeks, I found friends that I still have almost 20 years later from freshman year. Like those are my brothers. That is something that the HBCU experience gave me. Brothers for life.
Yeah.
And that is something I would never trade. So that is one thing that I could say is stamped as far as my HBCU experience. You find us from different backgrounds, we didn't know each other from a can of
Mm-hmm.
paint. But when we saw each other that we were black people and we were coming together to do something different, to further our education, to be more than what our environment was, where we came from, but to also just learn from each other as well. Because like I said, I have a brother from Detroit, I have a brother from Indianapolis, I have a brother from Memphis, I have a brother from Nashville, a brother from Chicago, and we all just got to experience each other on different levels. So it's just that's one thing I can never say I would ever give up. That HBCU experience was one in a million.
Well, I asked you that question because I too graduated from the Tennessee State University, and
Right.
it was a great experience. My experience was very much quite like yours. I agree. Coming from, Monica mentioned it, and you mentioned it too, from a very diverse place in Vallejo, California, with so many different cultures and ethnicities. Going to Tennessee, TSU to go to school, it was kind of like a culture shock to me because I was so used to seeing so many diverse nationalities, that when I got to TSU, it was just nothing but us. I mean, there was during the day on campus, during class time, you see, a few other people, but at night, after about 3 o'clock, all us. All of us. And so it was a great experience. I agree. And I wouldn't have changed that experience for the world. I didn't know you stayed at my pop's house when y'all went down to ATL. That's an interesting tidbit to know. And, I was part of that group that got to travel with the group in Vallejo to tour HBCU. So I'm sorry you didn't have that experience, man. That was a wonderful experience, but I'm glad your dad was able to tour you around. And I will say lastly about that, what you felt when you went to TSU was the spirit of Vallejo on that campus, from Dr. Fillmore Graham to Jamal Davis to Montoya Graham and myself, and then to you. So, we just welcomed you right on into the TSU Vallejo fold, brother, without you
Yes.
even knowing it.
Right.
All right, man. I appreciate y'all's take on that. Let's talk about your books, though. The reason why we're here is because you guys are authored. You guys both authored books. So let's talk about that. I want to first talk about the courage that it took just to get started with that work. Like, writing a book at any length is no small task, right? It takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of willpower just to get started and to stay consistent with it. There's so many things to consider and so many more enjoyable ways you can spend your time. I mean, once you have the thought to write a book, you're thinking about the end result, but then you have to start the process and go through the process and complete it. So my question to both of you, and I'm going to start with Monica, what in your life gave you the inspiration to initiate your thoughts into reality by writing a book, writing your thoughts down and creating a compelling flow for audiences to read and follow them? In other words, what compelled you to start the process of writing a book?
That is a very complex question. A good question, though. For as far as the first book that I wrote, called The Spirit House, it's like an account of a vision that I had, where I encountered the spirit world in a cabin, and the spirit taught me how to become more authentic with myself, and how putting on all these masks and people pleasing and trying to be what everybody wanted me to be was ruining my life. And so honestly, I've always been a creative, since, as like, that's all I know about myself, is that I'm supposed to be a creative. So I never set out to be an author. But when I would tell people about the vision that I saw, my pastors and friends and everything, they were like, that's a book. So I thought, oh, like, I've never written a book. So, but I felt that burning to share about this, like, kind of crazy out of body experience that I had, and what it taught me in that time. So I put it into a book. So it's really just kind of a written testimony. Um, and it's kind of raw and very elementary, but it's also very honest and true. So that's what compelled me to write that book. And then the other book is a children's book, and that was a lifelong uh, desire of mine, but I put it on the back burner, as we often do, for almost 40 years, and until I was inspired to pull that out of myself. So
Yeah, very good. Thank you for giving me that response. I understand that sometimes we stumble upon our creative works. Like you said, you're a creative by heart. I'm a creative by heart. I know Cam's got some creativity in him too. And sometimes we stumble upon creative works just by happenstance, just by brainstorming, just by going through life's experiences. And so for you guys, the viewing audience, you're watching, Monica said she had an experience and it was kind of revealed to her that you need to share this experience with other people. And she was like, well, that's a book. I don't know how to do that. But yet, there is a book written by Monica Renee Reagan called The Spirit House that she once thought about. And now you can actually go on Amazon.com and purchase it. So it's a powerful testimony of taking your thoughts and putting them into action and not allowing any fears or any doubts in your head to stop you from doing that, and also be obedient to the call. I think you felt like God was telling you you need to share this with other people. So you're like, well, what way can I do it? But to write a book. And so it's just about obedience. So I appreciate that response, Monica. Um, and so this is Cameron. I have the same question for you. Your book is titled. Well, I'm gonna let you talk about the title of your book. But what in your life gave you the inspiration to initiate your thoughts into the reality of writing that book? I understand what happened, but you can talk about that. But what gave you the inspiration to actually write that book?
All right. Well, uh, I actually never actually was much of a writer growing up. I didn't. I mean, I did take a poetry class in like middle school, maybe a little bit. Um, but I wasn't much of a writer growing up, other than having to do my school assignments. I was involved in choir and music and the arts, theater and all that growing up. But I never really got into writing, so it wasn't uh, something for me in my life that I think writing a book would have actually come to happen. But a lot of what happened is just what happened in my life. As you know, Johnny, I know Monica, you don't know. Um, my father passed in 2017 from colon cancer, and I had a tough time dealing with that. And then about a year later, I actually lost a friend who passed in his sleep. And on top of losing my father before that, those were just a bunch of raw emotions I didn't know how to deal with. So I sort of just kept them buried inside until someone, like I said, I don't have one particular person, but someone brought up to me, like I was talking about it, but I wasn't doing anything about it. Someone just said, "Why don't you go to therapy?" And I was like, "Therapy? I never even crossed my mind." And for us as Black folks, there's a lot of stigma behind therapy. We don't go to therapy. We go to church, we pray, we fast, we look to God, and all that's good, but there's a reason why God created therapists as well. So I called a therapist, and that sort of just opened the floodgates for me. And she sort of guided me on my journey on how to deal with these emotions of losing not only my father, but like I said, a friend of mine as well. And she said, make sure you have a journal and write everything down. So that's what I did. I wrote everything down. And everything that I wrote about my father started to come out, as far as like me growing up with him, our relationship, the lessons he gave me, the memories we had, the different things that he instilled in me that I still carry with me today. And eventually I started talking about it with my therapist, like all those things. And she said, that sounds like a book. And I said, what? She said, that sounds like a book. Everything that you've been writing, you should turn into a book. And at first I was like, no, this is just something I want to keep for myself. But then I started reading them back, as far as like what I was writing down about my father. And it sort of just pushed me into that place of like, you know what, this might actually be a good book. And it also helped me along with my personal journey with, healing from losing my father and, dealing with my grief. So eventually I started writing in sort of like a rhythmic or a rhyme scheme pattern. And I started seeing like how this all came together, as far as like from how I was a baby being born into this world with a father, him guiding me, him lifting me up, him providing for me, him spending time with me, him teaching me what he didn't have growing up. And it turned to what now is called my pops and the lessons he taught me.
Mm. Wow.
It's a great story, man, and a great book. It's well written. And Monica, I definitely gotta tap into yours as well. I haven't done so. I'm gonna be honest with you, but I do need to
That's
tap
okay.
into those. To be honest with you, but I have gone online. I've looked at them. I've looked at them, the reviews. I've read the reviews on both books, and read
Mhm.
the excerpts about the descriptions about the book. And I think that they're both, especially the Spirit House is a testimonial, more of a testimonial type book. And the children's book, both of them, Monica has a children's book and Cam has a children's book. I think both of them are very powerful tools for children, young adults, even some adults. Like when I'm, reading, I just be honest with some of the excerpts coming from your book, Cam, for adults. I mean, I'm sure some of those things still resonate with you today. They're not just lessons you learn to apply to your life as a child, right? Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate your response and feedback on those questions, and let us know about how those started. With Cameron, again, with Monica, it was about obedience with her first book. With her second book, it was just about revisiting a dream, something that she started that occurred years and years ago, that she came up and said, this still has value. This still is going to mean something to somebody. Let me go ahead and produce this work and not live with the regret of keeping it in my head and leaving this earth with it still there. And then Cameron, the same thing, being compelled, although your uh, therapist mentioned to you to start writing, as you began writing and you started receiving therapy through those writings, you also started probably internally realize that if this is therapeutic for me and this is helping me, this definitely can help other people. And the fact that you were obedient to what your therapist offered for you to do that would help, and the fact that you went on ahead and did that, and it started coming to your mind like, there's something I can do more with this. And by the time you got done with that, with your therapy session, you probably already had a book written, you know? And so I think those are just both powerful testimonies of following through with what it is that comes to mind, with what it is that's put in your heart, following through with your passions, and being obedient to the spirit that lies within you, that says, go forth and do, So Monica and Cameron, kudos to you guys for following, honoring the call, because of your obedience to the call, hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions may one day be inspired by your works. And no doubt, when you write a book, it leaves a legacy. It's something that you can set on someone's shelf. And whether they open that book or not, a piece of Cameron's mind, a piece of Monica's mind is sitting on someone's shelf. And that, I think that's a powerful legacy to leave behind.
Yeah, Johnny, can I take a second to acknowledge something that Cam said
Yeah,
too?
absolutely.
Um, you mentioned about how the Black community doesn't tend to go to therapy, and I would like to like echo that and also emphasize that it's the Black men especially will not tap into therapy and journaling, which are two very powerful tools. And so I just want to acknowledge you for stepping into that kind of murky territory. And like now the world gets to see your work in a book because you tapped into something to help you get clarity and healing and to work through those things. And I feel like that Black men really are starting to learn that, yeah, we need therapy, we need help, we need to understand these feelings and what to do with them. But each time a Black man taps into therapy, I just get really excited because I feel like it ripples out to our whole community. That'll help the way you are in business and you are in creativity and how you relate to family and other people, and that just affects us all as a whole and our culture. So thank you for for getting out of the box and following through with that. And I just am so excited that you mentioned that because I think that's so important for our community, especially our men. So thanks.
Thank you for sharing that, Monica. Because while he was saying it, that was a thought that crossed my mind. Like, wow, he went to therapy and he mentioned that Black men don't do that. But you expressed you took the opportunity to express it, and I appreciate that. Having a female
Yeah.
on with two males on. Cameron may be back with us. It looked like he may have gotten cut out there, but
Yeah.
with two males on, and him having that conversation, you were able to pull out from maybe a female point of view, how a black male should care for themselves, and your desire to see more black males care for themselves. Um, I'm a
Yeah.
black male myself, and I could have said that, but I also am a black male myself who, like
Right,
you,
right,
I need to probably sometimes seek therapy. Sometimes I need to go to the doctor. Sometimes I do need to express my feelings and emotions to people. So I appreciate you
right.
doing that. If you're out here listening, you got somebody that's on our team. So black men, go get help. Go get help.
Yeah, go get it. We want to see you whole. We black women want to see you guys healed and whole, and we want to be a part of the process. So anytime black man taps into that, I love it. I want to celebrate it. So yeah, thank
Yeah,
you for letting me acknowledge that.
yeah, I love that. Hopefully, we get Cameron back on here soon. It looks like he may have had some
Yeah.
technical difficulties, but we're gonna keep on going with you, Monica,
Okay.
while
Okay.
we wait to receive him back. Um, Writing a book, Monica, can be a lonely process. Talk about how you found
Mm.
the fortitude to push through your visions to the brink of completing the work, and despite any challenges that you may have been facing during that time.
Yeah, yeah, man. Even as a creative, like it's natural for me to create, but writing is a completely different process. And I chose to go the route of self publishing. So I didn't have anybody to teach me through the process. So it's very hairy, very sticky, a lot of restarting and restarting and throwing stuff away and editing and thinking, oh, this is it, I'm finished. And then having to start all over. So um, I hate to sound like the cheesy, corny Christian, but I have to give it to my faith in God to hold me through that process. I'm a single girl. I don't have anybody in my house to look up to. My dad is also in heaven, hopefully hanging out with your dad, Cam. So I didn't have that covering like I wanted to, and I was also kind of embarrassed of stepping into this realm that I didn't feel qualified for. So I kept it a secret. um, so yeah, I really had to lean on the Holy Spirit to keep me like, no, I want you to speak this story out. um, Even in the book I had to, just to kind of set the stage, um, tell stories about family and how my older siblings, I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and I have a beautiful family. I love my siblings, but there was some toxicity when we were growing up, that I faced as the youngest. And we're all toxic to each other. But I had to share those things, and I was horrified that they would end up hating me. Like, why are you telling our business? And why are you telling on us? Especially, again, as a Black family, we like to keep our business to ourselves. But I felt compelled by the Holy Spirit to be honest and to just lay it out there, to set the stage, to tell the true story. And he was the only thing that kept me going. When I would be in tears. I was seriously pulling hair out and in tears during this process. It's not like, you think of people drinking coffee and sitting at their computers and just getting all this work out. It's for me, it was not that story. It was like, sweat and blood and tears. And but like I said, it was the Holy Spirit prayer and getting into the word and just staying before him and saying, okay, God, this is your project, this is your baby, and yielding to him that got me through it. So
Yeah, yeah, I definitely know that it can be challenging. That's why I asked that question, because I know this, writing a book is not something you do in a day. It's not that's something you do in a week. If it has any value to it, it's going to be several months at least, if not years of working the process. And through those years, through those months, through those weeks, life is still happening. And on top of that, you know, the momentum you felt when you first had the thought to start writing, it changes, it decreases, it declines, it goes away. At some point, you got to finish the process to get to that point of having the tangible book in your hand. And those are some grueling steps. Can be some grueling steps. Cameron, we lost you for a minute, but glad you're back. The question that I asked Monica: writing a book can be a lonely process. Talk about how you found the fortitude to push your visions to the brink of completion of that work, despite the challenges you might have faced during that time?
Uh, well, I would say I sort of did keep my book a secret for a while. Um, I wanted to somewhat make it perfect, if that was even a goal, because perfection is nothing that can be actually captured. But for my first book, I did want it to be as right as I could get it. So, like I said, I kept it very in house. I didn't tell anybody about it. Of course, I think the first person I told was my mother, and she because I actually wanted to get her blessing on, like, I'm writing about dad. I told her I'm writing about dad. It's about everything that he shared with me growing up. Like, I wanted to get your feedback on it, and she just she said, I'm so happy you're doing this. She was so happy that I was going to therapy, because a mother knows. At the end of the day, a mother knows. So she knew that I was struggling with dealing with my grief, and I never actually talked about it with her until I actually started going to therapy. So for her to know that I was actually finding an outlet, and it turned into something more, was something that she actually I won't say praised me for, but was just so happy for, and was just so ecstatic about. So when I told her I was writing a book, she was 100% in on it. Um, but yeah, it isn't an easy process to keep going, because I actually had to publish my book twice. The first time around, the publisher I went with, they publishing was probably the hardest process for me, um, because the first publisher, they would I talked to probably like 4 or 5 different people, and they said like, "Oh, we're gonna do this for you. We're gonna do this for you." They gave me a whole rundown. But then when it came to actually publishing my book, there was some issue with the printing process of it, and they said like, "Oh, only our company can actually push out the book, because every other printing press or printing something with printing that they utilize wasn't used by everybody else." I said that wasn't what was told to me initially. So and I said, okay, fine, I'll deal with it. So for like a couple years, I stuck with them, and I was like, this is kind of annoying, because I can only have, when people ask like, where is your book available at? I was like, only through this one company. Like, it wasn't available on Amazon. It wasn't available on Books a Million. It wasn't available if you Googled it. I had to tell them, well, you have to get it directly either from me, or you have to go to this company. And the company was charging too much anyway. I was always ordering my own books to give out to people. So I think a couple years later, I reached out to another, uh, I think more recognizable publishing company, and they actually were able to give me what I asked for and what they said they were going to do. So I stopped my contract with the other publishing company, went to this publishing company. Of course, I had to shell out more money for that. That's another thing. You're gonna be shelling out money, like not just with like getting the book together, but like actually the publishing pricing is ridiculous. So to have to do that with two companies within a span of like maybe 1.5 to 2 years was something that I definitely didn't plan for, but it is something that I felt like I had to take the sacrifice on, because I knew my book needed to reach more people. It needed to reach a lot more hands. So I decided to pay that price, and that's what I did. And now my book has actually done a lot better. I can actually tell people that there's more areas in which you can find my book. Um, but that I would say was like the hardest part of like just like finishing it up and like getting it out. But I actually enjoyed every part of like the creating process. Like when I had to actually write my book, the illustrations. I actually reached out to a high school friend of mine who she's a artist. She actually has some art in some museum, not museums, but some like art. I forgot. This the art places, galleries. Yes, thank you. Galleries out in the Bay Area, and I reached out to her because she had actually done some illustrations in the past for other authors. So I reached out to her. She said, like, I haven't done that in years, but after she heard my story and how everything was going to be, she said, I actually want to do this for you. And she actually did it. And I did, of course, I paid her for it, but she said, like, I would have done this for free, but I was like, no, I want to pay you for your services, because what she did with giving me those illustrations, like, really brought my book and my words to life. So that was a fun part of it. Um, but yeah, I would say the publishing part was like the most business part of it. Everything else was just so much fun, being able just to put my book together and to finally see it and have it in my hand. That was just an amazing feeling to see that too.
I know that's got to be a great feeling once you finally put the last dot, the last period on the end, and close up the writing and send it off to the publisher for them to print it, and then to get the distributor to send you your final copy, the hardback copy or the paperback copy or the digital copy, whatever. There's got to be, and I was talking to Monica and Cameron, there's got to be an amazing feeling like, wow, it's finally done and it's here. It's tangible. I was going to ask you, Cameron, about some of those things in the next question, about some of the design and the publication, the illustration, and how that came about. But you answered it perfectly in your response, so I appreciate that. Illustrating how it is not such an easy process, but that also is what helps establish any book writing as a legacy, because of how much in-depth work that it takes from an individual who's writing it. Like, there's psychological things you deal with, there's emotional things you deal with, there's mental things you deal with, there's physical things you deal with, and then there's regular life that you deal with all through the process of writing this book. And you have to maintain the fortitude, like, to keep up with completing that work, and not, also in the process of you keeping up with it, not not dampening or drowning the spirit of the book in the process, because you're maybe getting a little bit tired or maybe going through life. You still got to keep the theme of the book going. You still want to keep the momentum and the whole point of the book. You want to make the point. You don't want to lose the point. So I commend both of you on finishing. I don't care how long the book is. I don't care what format the book is in. I commend any person who takes their thoughts, put it down on paper or in a computer, and finishes the process of getting it in a tangible form in somebody else's hand for them to consume. I commend you for that, because that's amazing. It takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot. So that's one of the things I wanted to highlight in this series. Monica, you've written and published 2 books. You talked about both of those earlier. Take us through your processes that it took for you to get your work distributed and how you promoted those works.
So like I said, I self-published on both. And the children's book, God's Voice, I illustrated myself. Now that was fun in the sun, because that's where, that's my language right there, is art and drawing and stuff. So that part was fun. However, it was my first time creating digitally, so I was doing all this on my computer screen, and that's a new medium for me. So it was a stretch, but fun. And as far as publishing, I publish both through Amazon. And again, there's not a whole lot of instruction through their process. So you have to wing it. So I published it a gazillion times and took it down a gazillion times, because each time, you see your finished product up there and you're like, oh my gosh, that's backwards, or this this didn't pan out right. And even like the way you set the pages and size and shapes and imagery and all that stuff. So it was trial and error, and like all the way, and I didn't have anybody really um, checking me or saying, "Hey, this is how you should do things." But that's kind of artist I am. Is I kind of just go with grit and grunginess and let the ugly thing get out there, and then fix it later. I remember one time Johnny, you were helping me move into my apartment, and I had this rack that I had. I don't know if you remember where this is going, but I had this rack that I had spray painted. It was my mom's, and I was so proud, because it was like an old peach 80s color, and I had spray painted it silver and was putting it in my kitchen. And you were like, girl, this thing is dusty. You didn't even clean it before you painted it. And I was like, dang, Johnny put me in my place. But that's kind of artist I am, is like, just get it out there and then fix it later. So that was my process with the book, is like just self-publishing through Amazon, and you just keep trying it till you get it right. So
Man, I didn't
yeah.
remember that, but when you tell it to me, I do remember helping you move into the apartment, but I
Yeah.
didn't remember
Yeah.
that story. But yeah, I know you as a creator.
I do. It hurt my ego. So
I'm sorry. All these years later, please accept my apologies, Monica. Please, you can rest. You can put that
no,
subject to
you
rest.
made me stronger. You helped me out. You helped me out. So no apologies needed.
That's dope. That's dope. But no, I appreciate that. And again, like these people are people that I know. When I say these people, I'm talking about Monica and Cameron, that I know personally. So, these interviews allow me to be more personable, with my
Yeah.
guests. And I appreciate you guys bringing that real tangible, real life feedback, to me. Sometimes I don't even remember some of the things that my guests that I'm interviewing, because I know all of them. So sometimes they'll bring up stuff that I don't recall. But it's always good. Um, all right, we're almost done here. You guys have both shared a lot. The thing that I hope that you guys, if you're watching in the audience, that I hope you get out of this is that when you decide to write a book, once you make the decision, you have to see it through, because there's so many things that's going to come at you along the way that can throw you off track, that can hinder your momentum, that can enter your psyche and then cause you to want to stop and want to quit, want to give up. And God wouldn't have put it in your heart, put it in your mind, or on your heart or in your spirit if that thing wasn't for you to do. And so I just encourage you, if you're a person out there who's considering writing a book, if you're actually in the process of writing but you're struggling with the consistency to keep up, give it some time if you've got to, but don't quit on the project, don't quit on the work. Give yourself time to release, to relax, to open your mind to different things. Maybe talk to someone about it, but don't give up on that work, because the same feeling that you had when you thought about writing and you started writing it, those are the people that you're going to reach when you complete it. So, do it for them, because nothing you do in writing a book is for you. Yes, you might get something out of it, but in the end, it was meant to be a benefit to other people. So, you're doing it for other people. And that's why it's so admirable what you guys do, because what all book authors do, because you really are doing it for someone else. When Monica, when you wrote The Spirit House, and when you wrote the children's book, you're writing for children. You're writing for other people who might have those type of experiences with the spirit world, or inner conflicts with themselves. Cameron, when you're writing your children's book, you're writing it for children and adults who've lost a parent, and children who have lost. I mean, adults who lost a parent, children who lost a parent, adults who might have lost a child, and you know, everyone can benefit from that book. So I just commend you. We're getting to the end. This last couple of questions are not necessarily related to book writing, but I appreciate all of your commentary on book and authorship. I'd like to offer the floor to either of you. If you guys have something to talk about your book that I have yet to ask you that you wanted to discuss, Cameron, I'm gonna give you the floor first. This is not like a promotional moment. This is just, if I didn't ask a question that you had something in your mind that you wanted to say, this is an opportunity for you to say that about writing the book.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Johnny. One thing I do want to say, that I actually didn't take full advantage of until probably, like I said, a couple years ago. I actually started to go out and promote my book to different book fairs, to schools, to teachers, and seeing that, and just going into that community. I made a lot of great connections. And one book event that I did, and like I said, this is the one thing I do want to say. One book event I did, I actually went out. I actually got a chance to go to New York, Syracuse actually, and they were doing an inner city book fair for kids, who might not have access to certain books or might not have access to books in general. So just to be a part of that was very just monumental for me, and seeing just the different kids come up to my table, see my book, ask questions. It was just a great feeling. And there was this one child, this one young boy. He like I said, they gave out tickets, so they paid me for my books, but then they didn't have the kids buy the book. They would just give them a ticket like a raffle, and they would just bring the ticket, and I would take the ticket, and I would just give them my book. Of course, I'd sign it, and but this one young boy came up to me, gave me a ticket, I gave him the book, and I sort of broke down. I sort of told him like why I wrote the book and talked about my dad, and he asked me, "Do you think your dad's proud of what you did?" And I just told him I hope so. And then he just smiled and left. But that, I just sat down and sat with that for a little bit just to think about like, it's interesting that he asked me that, and I was just like, every day I do try to make my dad proud. Like even like I said, even though he's gone, even though I still carry him with me, I still think about that. Like I always want to make my dad proud each and every day. So for him to like just share that, like say that to me, and just for me to just like sit in that for a little while, just made my heart full. So that was one thing that I just wanted to say is like as far as like with me writing this book, that I'm touching a lot of different people, and definitely I did the right thing finishing it through.
You absolutely did, man. That story is a testimony in of itself. When you go and a young man, I don't know how old this kid was, but for him to have the foresight to look at you in front of you and ask you, do you think your dad is proud of what you did? He's not really probably not questioning you like, did you do the right thing by writing his book? But more so what he's saying is, man, you're here in New York. I'm here at this event. I'm getting a copy of this book. This book is meant to teach me some lessons that you got from your dad. Do you think that you did good by writing this book? And will I get out of it what I meant to get out of it? And your answer to that question might have helped him, like, you know what, I knew I was talking to the right dude. I'm excited about reading this book. Who knows why he asked that question and what he gets out of it, but I just think that's, it's profound that a younger member of our society, has asked such a mature question. And for when you said you sat on that question for a while, soon as you asked it, and I saw Monica's reaction, I said the same thing, like, oh man, that's heavy from a little kid, because I would think like, man, is my dad proud of me for writing that book? And then you know that you did it to make your father proud. You know that you did it for your own, with your own personal pride in mind, and it reminds you that he should be proud of me because this is all the lessons that he taught me. You know what I mean? And I think that's amazing, Monica. Your recollection too of you and your story, how you came about with your writing and discovering the children's book from way back in your past and saying, this is something that still sits within me. It still burns inside of me. And I'm not going to leave here without letting it out. Maybe you haven't crossed paths with someone yet who has had a similar question, but when I went on to Amazon.com and I looked at the reviews of that book, there are multiple people who mentioned that that book, even though it was written for children, was just as good and just as impactful for adults. So I think that's amazing that you guys don't know. You probably didn't know when you were writing this book who it was going to impact, how many people it was going to impact, what opportunities you were going to get as a result of it. But um, you know, I know that society as a whole benefits from authors like you who put your own, you probably for a little while you put your own life on the line, your own lifestyle on the line. Sometimes you forego going to some events because you got some deadlines, you got some thoughts you got to get out. or you've been writing all day and you just tired. I just don't feel like doing it. I had something to do, but I got to cancel because I'm just, man, it took a lot of emotion to get these few pages out. You know what I mean? And that's the stuff that makes authorship such a powerful work. I just appreciate you guys for doing that.
John,
Yeah, and
don't mean to
no, go
interrupt
ahead.
at
You
all.
want to say something else, Cam? Go ahead, because I'm gonna open up the floor to you, Monica.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I just wanted to speaking to that, like for going and like I actually when I started going to therapy, it was like I think right before COVID
Mm-hmm.
hit. So we actually had to do a lot of our sessions virtually. And so when I started writing, it was because I had to be inside. We couldn't go outside. We couldn't do anything else. I think that played a big part in me actually getting everything out, having to sit
Mm-hmm.
still and just thinking about like, okay, I can't go outside. I'm only limited to what I can do in my room. Like me, I had a roommate. We really didn't interact too much. Like we both worked from home, but we sort of stayed in our like specific areas for most of the day until we had to like come out, make our food or whatever and things like that. We sort of stayed away from each other. We didn't have access to the outside world,
Yeah,
so to have to sit still and just be in it, I think that sort of pushed me even further to be like, okay, I need to get this out because I can't distract myself with
yeah,
anything else.
yeah. Sometimes that's called God's timing.
Hmm.
It's called God's
Yes,
timing, and you got to
100%.
recognize it and take advantage of it. Monica, the
Yes,
floor is
absolutely.
open to you. Before we move on to a little lighter subject matter, last statements you might have on book authorship or some of your experiences in getting your books distributed.
Yeah, I just want to actually encourage anybody who's listening to kind of circle back to the revisit your dream theme, that whatever you have inside of you that's creative, and creative doesn't just mean arts, creative can mean creating a team or creating a spreadsheet or, creating an account. But I think that God put those things in us on purpose. And like as we grow up, we feel like arts and creating is not important or it's going to get laughed at. We're in the middle of cancel culture. So it's really hard to put yourself out there. But I just want to encourage everybody that that dream in you is in there for a purpose, and it has nothing to do with you. It has very little to do with you. It's more about, like my brothers on each side were saying, it's going to touch somebody else. It's going to be a profound ministry to someone else in one way or another. So, yeah, don't sit on that dream. And there's so much that is released in you as a person when you overcome those fears and the procrastination and all of that stuff that gets in the way. There's so much that gets pulled out of you, and you grow so much as a human being when you release that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I agree. Like, I did have somebody send me a video review of their daughter just going through my book and saying what she liked about it. I also included like some coloring pages because I'm like, oh, I gotta let the kids create.
Mm-hmm.
So she was talking about what she liked about the book, and the main character in the book, I drew. She's faceless, but she's a little brown girl with a little puffy bun on her head, kind of like this. And so just because, like, I related to her, so she kind of looks like me. But the last thing the little girl said in her review was, and she looks like me. She's a little, Latina black girl. And that it gives me chicken skin to this day. Like, if that's the whole reason I went through everything to get that book out, that's all I needed was for that little girl to have her representation. So it is, you have to look beyond yourself and know that there is a reason that this gift is in you. Revisit that dream and go after it, no matter how wonky or big or little you think it is, because it's worth it. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Thank you for
that's
that, Monica. That's powerful, powerful word. I interviewed my homie Doe. I interviewed several episodes ago, but he said in this episode, it ain't about you, man. You got to recognize when it ain't about you and get out the way.
Yeah.
And Monica is kind of what you're saying is, it's not about you. The writing is not about you. You just have to. You're just the vessel that the writing is coming through, and the vessel that's going to work out the words and work out the the whole project. But it's not about you. You have to be um, obedient and open to that calling, because it is about everybody else, and it won't be about everybody else if you don't finish the work. you know. So, like she said, revisit that dream, and follow through with it. Take time, take a break if you have to. If you got to separate from the idea or the project for a little while, do so. But revisit it, come back to it. Don't let it sit dormant. Even if you got to include somebody else in your vision in order to help you get it accomplished, do that. But don't let it sit dormant, because it was in there for a reason. We're going to get off into some lighter stuff, and then I'm going to allow you guys the platform to talk about your books and where people can find you, and people can find your books and anything you got going on further. But this last question is called the V List. It's a segment that I started a couple of weeks ago, actually. And I asked this to every guest that I interview from Vallejo. I start off with one called What is it about Vallejo? And I end off with one called the V List. The V List, it used to be called My Playlist. So you can probably imagine where I'm going with this. You have 3 slots available, only 3 on your playlist. You can only fill those slots with Vallejo based artists. Who you listening to? Monica first.
Oh, why you put me on the spot? You know what? There's this new up and coming dude. His name is Miles Minnick. I don't know if you heard of him, but that little guy is on fire right now. He's like bringing back that old Bay Area fire, but it's also he's coming from a Christian standpoint. He's got E40 on his release, and he's just like fiery. So I'm excited about him. So he definitely him.
Oh, I haven't
Gotta
heard of
give it
him
to
either.
her, another Black Filipino sister from the Bay, with mad vocals and just her. I think even though she's huge, I still think she's underrated. Like she's just a powerhouse on all the instruments and her beauty and her humility. So got to give it to her. And of course, rest in peace to Sly Stone. Like everything that we do in our come out of that man and his band, and like we're still listening to summer hits from him. And I know some of his family and all that stuff, so I gotta give him props. So super proud of Mr. Sly Stone.
Yeah, yeah, great list, great list. There's so many artists that come from Vallejo. Cam, you're next, but there's so many artists that come from Vallejo. I used to ask this question. I used to give people 5. You know, 5. I want to know 5 people who you're listening to. But now 3 makes it a little bit more interesting. It kind of narrows down your focus, your niche, what you really like to listen to, who you really like to listen to, as opposed to just picking 5 people. There are a lot of people you could have chose from. So Sly Stone, um, Miles, what was his for name? I've never heard of him before.
Miles Minnick. Yeah,
Miles
yeah.
Minute.
I think he's from Vallejo. I know he's from the Bay, but I think he's from Vallejo.
Okay, I got to look him up. And her, who could
Yeah.
I will say this: every person that I've asked that question to had her on the list.
Oh.
Um, so Cam, you might be different though. You don't have to stick to the script, man. The question is for you. You got 3 slots on your playlist. You can only fill them with Vallejo-based artists. Who you listening to?
Well, I'm sorry, I got to put her on it now because I mean, her is just she is just another talent that's just on another level. And like you said, underdog. Even though she's gotten a Grammy, she's gotten an award, she's performed on the Super Bowl, she's performed with so many different artists, but I still feel like she's not getting her just due.
Mhm,
You know,
Yeah.
mhm.
but I think that's like you said, underdog. Where we come from, that's just what it is. We gotta crawl to get to all the way to the top. And she's been at the top, but I still think she has a lot to still
Agreed.
accomplish. Some more glass ceilings to break through. So her and just like her music is just so like when she first came out, I was like, who is this girl not showing her face in front of Vallejo? I'm like, why does she want to show her face? I'm like, what's going on? And then I was like, I'm not gonna listen to it. And then after a while, people just kept on talking about it. I'm like, okay, she's from the home, from the Bay. And from Vallejo, so I gotta go back. And I started listening to music. I was like, oh, I don't need to know her face if she's doing
Yeah.
all of this. Like her music just speaks for itself. And then when she started showing her face, I was like, oh, okay. She wanted to be about the music because she is very beautiful, but she just wanted to be about the music and her artistry and what she can bring. So I understood that, but just going back to hear her music, it was like, wow, amazing.
Yeah, it definitely worked.
Got to give my second slot to 40 Water, E40, all day. Uh, man, I remember growing up hearing Sprinkle Me on the radio. With it, that song when that I was like, oh. And then when I just hearing that like on the radio and it's like me and like all my cousins, we used to just vibe out to that song, and we would just we would be like saying like trying to like learn the lyrics, even though he was slicker than a hippopotamus, he was like trying to be fast with it. We was all trying to like be like him and like rap like him and just like just from with him being from the Bay Area and like hearing that on 106 KMEL almost every day just was like special. So and just seeing him grow as an artist too, like, and to have him get his crossover success almost like 20 years into his
Yeah.
career, which is crazy to me because of course for us it was like we knew E40. So, but to see him like when he got with Lil Jon and did his songs with him and T-Pain and all that, like it was like we knew what he was about. But that's when like the whole world finally got to see Vallejo on a whole different level.
Yeah.
So that was huge for huge. So definitely got to put E40 on the list. And then last but certainly not least, R.I.P. Mac Dre. Mac Dre. I didn't really growing up, I didn't really get to listen to a lot of hip hop. My parents would let some stuff slide. But when I got into high school, that's when like people started like, I got put on the Mac Dre and I had to go back and listen to like some of his older projects. And just for him to start the whole hyphy movement and just like bring that to the Bay Area, and for him to like I said, for him to just bring that out and like for people to just like latch onto it and just see his influence in the music, even still today, which is crazy just to see that. So to have that influence and just like that was still like underrated to the whole hyphy movement when it came out. It took a lot for it to like get built up into, but like I said, underrated, underdog, but his stamp is forever linked to that and just what he did in the short time that like he was out before what happened. So definitely.
Yeah, man. Both great lists. Both great lists. I mean, you guys both had her on there, and then Cam, you finished it off with 40 and Mac Dre. And Monica, your list included her. Miles, I can't remember his name again. Start with an M, last
Miles
name.
Minnick.
Minnick. I was gonna say Minnick. Minnick. Miles Minnick.
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 Minnick, I believe
Minnick.
it is.
Okay, Minnick.
Yeah.
Miles
Look
Minnick.
them up, you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, and
I
Sly
have one more.
Stone.
Can I add one more?
Absolutely. Honorable mention.
Okay, okay, I gotta give it to Benicia, California. There was a trio in the late 90s, early 2000s of gospel artists at our church rapping together, and there was one artist in there who I love my brothers, but Johnny was bringing it. Like every time he would grab the mic, it was just fire. So I gotta give it up to Johnny King III.
Man, that's love. I appreciate that, Monica. I mean, some of y'all on here, if you're watching, you may know me for that. You may not know me for that. There have been a couple people on here who mentioned that before, but Monica definitely was there when I was rapping on stage at church. Me and Chad and Tim. Rest in peace to Tim Peterson and Greg.
Yes.
The homie Greg, man, and oh man, I miss Tim, man. I miss brother Tim. But that was some good times, man. I did remember being on the mic spitting. I don't know if I'm one of the top artists on the way or not at all, but I'm glad that you remember that and you acknowledge that. I still remember those rhymes y'all wrote for Pastor Sam, man. I remember some of those rhymes getting up on mic. I remember vividly like being on stage and people in the in the congregation, older people, white people, Filipino people, young people,
Yeah.
all of them was just like, oh, okay, he's getting it.
Yeah.
That was a good time. Cameron, man,
Yeah.
with your responses, with 40 and Mac Dre, rest in peace to Mac Dre. Monica, as soon as he mentioned Mac Dre, you threw up the T. If y'all don't know, it's for Thiz, like it shows you that we know
That's my
about our
nice little
culture.
this face.
When you from Vallejo, you know all about it. She didn't mention too much rap in her list other than Miles Minnick, but you know, she know what this means. She know Mac Dre is related to. You know what I mean? That's just from our small city. And Cam, you right. Mac Dre was so influential to our culture, hip hop culture. I should mean. I'm trying to say. To this day, he still gets sampled by other people, other artists. Famous, big name, huge artists mention him in their music, which shows you that they know how far his music goes back. They know the creativity that comes from him. A lot of the lingo that you hear in all of hip hop comes from a lot of it. I would say 70% of the lingo in hip hop come from two people, Mac Dre and E40, both of them from Vallejo,
For
California.
sure. For sure.
Like real talk. Yeah, great list, great list. I think Monica, when I was well, I don't know if I want to tell that story. I'm gonna tell you that story off camera. It is about Sly Stone and a crazy time when one of his songs came start playing. I don't want to talk about that song right now. I mean that moment right now online.
Okay.
But I will talk to you off camera about that. But Cam, all right. So I appreciate y'all doing this. I appreciate y'all being here. Before I get into giving you the floor, I'm gonna offer you an opportunity to offer a word of inspiration. Monica, you already did so when you talked about revisiting your dreams, but I'm gonna ask you it in a different way. If you had a, if there was one quote or a mantra or a scripture or phrase or whatever that you wanted to present to somebody, if you knew for a fact that they would take heed to it, you knew that they were going to do something about what you said, what would be the word that you would tell them?
Gosh, the first thing that comes to mind, I mean, I can think of tons of like scriptures and quotes, but the first thing that came to mind is there was a gospel artist named Crystal Lewis that I used to bump so hard. Just white gospel singer, but she has a line in one in her lyrics that says, "Sometimes the thrill of soaring has to begin with the fear of falling." And I love to like bring that up when I'm wanting to do like even this. I do not like to talk to the camera and online and interview. But when you asked me if I would do this, I said yes because I knew I had to speak before my comfort level brought me back to the zone. And just that line, she constantly reminds me to just overcome your fears because, like, you're not going to soar if you don't jump.
Mm-hmm.
So, that line, sometimes the thrill of soaring has to begin with the fear of falling. And yeah, I would
That's
share
a
that over
powerful
and
way to put
over.
it. Yeah, that's a powerful way to put it. Sometimes the fear, I mean, say that in one more time. Thrill.
Sometimes the thrill of soaring has to begin with the fear of falling.
Yeah, that's such a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Because I mean, soon as you say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is
Mhm.
bungee jumping. But and really, like, if I want to experience that thrill, I gotta quickly get over the fear of falling. If I'm gonna take
Right.
that jump, if I want to experience bungee
Right.
jumping, so that's what comes to mind. And anything that you want to accomplish, there's if there's some magnitude to it, if it's supposed to be for other people, if it's going to be something that's great, if it's going to be something that's in depth, that's going to take a long time and pull out of your heart, it's going to it's going to do something to you, and you might have some butterflies in your stomach. You might be a little bit fearful about what you're doing, but you're never going to accomplish that thing if you don't take the leap of faith to start the process anyway. You have to start, and you have to move one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. The hardest part is to just start. So what she's saying is you got to get over the fear of starting if you
Yeah.
want the end result to occur. So thank you for sharing that, Monica. Cameron, same thing to you. If you could offer a word, a scripture, a quote, a mantra, a phrase to anyone, if you knew for a fact that they were going to take heed to it, what would you tell them?
Yeah. Um, and this is something that I actually this is a quote from my father. It's not in the book, but it's something that he always said to me that stuck with me. 90% of success is showing up.
Mm.
Yeah.
Show up. Whether it's work, school, an interview, your kids' play, church, going to someone's birthday, going to a vacation, just show up and the other 10% will work itself out. One thing that I always remember from my father was he was there.
Mm.
He showed up for me, he showed up for my sister, he showed up for my mom, he showed up for his brothers, he showed up for his sisters, he showed up for family, he showed up for his friends, he showed up for his coworkers, for his employees. He was always showing
Mm.
up. So I believe that is important, like to always show up, because seeing your face to some for someone else, or even showing up for yourself in times that you think you couldn't do it, will get you a lot places rather than saying I just don't want to go, or I just don't want to do it. If you show up, trust me, everything else will work out
Mm.
because it's already inside of you. You just have to move yourself to show up.
Mm.
Man, that both of those statements very powerful. Show up. You speaking to me. Both of those statements are speaking to me personally right now, and y'all don't even know it. That's why you got to get out the way and just be obedient. Say what you got to say. Write what you got to write. Cameron, showing up. Sometimes I don't like. I enjoy doing this podcast. Like this is something that is a it's a gift that I know God is presenting to other people through me for whatever benefit. I don't know, like Monica, when you said that one little girl sent you that video, or the parent sent you the video of her daughter, and if it was just that one for that one person, then your work was accomplished in the right vein. And the same thing with this podcast. If one person sees this episode and gets something out of it and decides to continue on with the process of their project as a result of the work that you guys have done and what the words that you guys have shared tonight, this whole benefit of this episode was what it was meant to. It did what it was meant to do. Revisit your dreams is to encourage, to inspire, and motivate. If not many, at least one. And if one person watches it and gets something out of it, I've done my job, and that's why I keep showing up every day for that one person. There's many times when I've scheduled an interview, and minutes before I didn't feel like getting on camera. I'm like, I like doing this, but right now, at this very moment, I'm not feeling it. But I've already scheduled it. I've already got the person, waiting. They're anticipating a great episode. They're anticipating a great conversation. They set aside their time in their life for something I asked them to do. And ultimately, I'm trying to be obedient to the other people that's supposed to get something out of this. So I just have to bear with my own thoughts and go through the motion, show up. I can deal with my own issues after the fact. It's an hour and a half conversation with some people that I know, and enjoy that moment and then go deal with life. So powerful statement, show up. There's even one thing you mentioned, Cam, in all the areas where it's important to show up. Another area is in relationships, and that speaks to me right now, like friendships, close friends, best friends, family members, even like fraternally, sometimes showing up to events and showing up to places where you know that there are people that would welcome your presence and even want to see you. Sometimes we don't feel like being seen, but you know, you never know when you go out there and you actually expose yourself to that environment, how much it really does for you and your spirit. And you're so glad when after it's over, like, I'm glad I went. I'm glad I showed up.
Mm.
Most of the time, that's usually the case. It's not usually like, man, I wish I wouldn't have never went there. It's usually like, I'm glad I went. I didn't feel like going, but I'm glad I went. So yeah, Cameron, very powerful. Showing up for family, showing up for friends, showing up to your commitments, showing up for yourself, right? When you revisit your dreams,
Yes.
you are showing up for other people, but you are showing up for yourself, because if you don't revisit that dream and you leave this earth with that dream still in here, at some point in your life, that had dream had turned into regret, and you're leaving this earth with that regret. I don't want to do that in my life. That's why I started this podcast. I know Monica didn't want that in hers. That's why she was obedient with the book. Cameron didn't want it in his. That's why he was obedient with the book. So thank you guys for doing this. Thank you guys for sharing your testimonies with us tonight. I definitely appreciate it. I'm going to offer you the floor now to talk about anything you want to talk about, your book, where they can find it, where they can find you online, where they can purchase your books. Monica, ladies first. I'm going to give you the floor. The floor is yours. Let the people know anything you want them to know.
Okay, so my books, God's Voice is the children's book about learning to hear God's voice in everyday life. And that is available on Amazon. God's Voice by Monica Renee, and then the Spirit House, which I explained earlier, that's also available on Amazon by Monica Renee. It's my middle name. And I'm also starting a YouTube channel. It's called The Treasure Garden. That's always been my business name. It speaks to the heart where where your treasure is. But it just shares everyday life of someone with chronic pain and chronic fatigue, and how I make the most of the limitations that I have, and make life beautiful with, pain every day and fatigue every day. And hopefully, I want to inspire other people who are maybe stuck in the house, or that have a lot of downtime, to find God and beauty and joy in that space. So that's the Treasure Garden on YouTube. So go watch it. It's budding and growing, but I'm excited about it. It's my new project.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's two books out there. You can find them both on Amazon.com, The Spirit House and God's Grace. And then
God's
go
voice.
God's Voice. I'm sorry, God's Voice, and go follow the YouTube channel. What was the name of the channel?
The Treasure Garden.
The Treasure Garden. Go follow. I'm gonna go follow and tap in. Yeah, thank you for that, Monica and Cameron. The floor is yours. Let the people know where they can find you, where they can find your work, anything else you want to share with the audience.
All right. So my pops and the lessons he taught me is pops with a Z. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Books a Million. A couple other sites. I think Barnes and Noble online. You can Google it as well. Um, I am I'm on Instagram at C Moses the author. I'm also have a book a page dedicated to my book called My Pops and the Lessons He Taught Me on Instagram as well. So you can find me there. Also, um, I am actually working on let's say finishing up my second book. I haven't got a full title for it yet. Um, I am, and I would say I'm on like my third draft of it, and I'm just trying to get certain things right. But like you said, I just got to push through and get to it like I did with my first book. So that's what I'm doing, and it's touching on some taboo topics for our community. Things that we. That's one thing I want to do is like shed some light on some areas that we need to stop, holding back on. So I have, and they're like it's short story form. So each story involves a topic that we don't like to talk about when it comes to the Black community. So it's gonna talk about some mental health, some physical health, and some emotional health as well. So just some areas that I think we need to have more discussions about and be more transparent about, especially for us in our community, because I think that'll help us move along a lot further and just help, you know, break the stigma in our community as well of those topics. So that's what I'm working on next. But and then uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. But I do want to say, Johnny, thank you so much for this opportunity. It when you reached out to me about it, I haven't actually done too many podcasts before. I think I've done one or two, but anytime to congregate with you and to like talk about my book and to also just have a good conversation, and also just being able to hear about you, Monica, as well. For us to come together and share our creative passions and to be able to talk about it, and that other people will hopefully get something out of it. It's something that I knew I needed to be a part of because it is something that I think we always need to talk about, always need to share, and that creative light is in each one of us. Like you said, Monica, earlier, we all have a creative passion, whether it's, like I said, doing something like writing a book, you, Johnny, with your podcast, or like you said, something as small as creating, like I said, an Excel sheet, or creating a small form, or just, or doing something big, wanting to be in the arts or in theater and the movies or music. I feel like each one of us on this earth have a creative passion. And for us to just sit down and talk about it and to share our experience about it is very, very important and needed. So I just want to say thank you, Johnny, for this opportunity. I definitely, definitely appreciate it.
Man, you are so welcome, and I appreciate you being here. Monica, I definitely appreciate you being here as well. For the things that they mentioned, their books, the links will be down in the description below. So I'll make sure that I get those from them so that I can include them in the description, and you guys have access, direct access to go purchase the books off of Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, wherever you can find them. Monica Moqui, my sister from the V, living in the B. Thank you, Benicia. I know that was that's not a reflection of the rhyming I used to do. Not really. Just trying to do something, top of the head. But I appreciate you being here, Monica. My brother Cam, man, I
Thank
appreciate you
you.
being here. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. I hope that if you're watching today, watching tonight, whenever you're watching, that you got something out of this episode. Please like this episode. Please share it with someone that you know who can get something out of it. If you know somebody who's writing a book or who's working on a project and that project is meant to impact other people, please encourage them. Please encourage them to continue on with that project, continue on with that work, because it is not about them, it's about other people. And if you need some inspiration and motivation to feed to them, share this episode with them. All right. Subscribe to this channel, share with other people that you know that can get someone out of it, because Monica and Cameron both dropped some gems and jewels on us tonight that we can benefit and grow from. This is the Revisit Your Dreams channel. I'm Johnny King III, aka Still Chill Leroy. That's Monica Renee. That's Cameron Johnson. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Revisit Your Dreams channel. One love. We out.
Revisiting my dreams with the king.
Yay.